left unsaid. Days that can't be counted by the time till rent. Tomorrow's just another like the one that comes next. The corner of the highway that leads to the job, at the desk by the boss with the elegant watch. The tick of the clock and the tick of the clock mark the moments till the ticking stops.
We welcome Caroline Stokes back to the podcast. Caroline is a Sony alum who contributed to the launch of PlayStation and a PCC level EQ 2.0 certified coach. Caroline has evolved from executive headhunter to one of the few global authorities on psychological and strategic leadership reinvention. She works with founders, boards, and executive teams to build intelligent, sovereign, and trust-based systems aligned with the complexity of our time. And boy, is it complex. We spoke to Caroline some years back about her book, Elephants Before Unicorns, Emotionally Intelligent HR Strategies to Save Your Company. And she has a new book. It's called Aftershock to 2030, a CEO's Guide to Reinvention in the Age of AI, Climate, and Societal Collapse. Enjoy the pod. Caroline Stokes, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here with you again.
First question is always an interesting thing for me because I have to sort of pick out what either resonated with me or a point of connection. And there are three improv adages that sort of kept coming back to me as I was reading your book and rereading it because it was my second time through.
Wow.
And so I'm going to read these three to you and then let you respond. In improv, we learn to see all obstacles as gifts. We learn to play the scene we're in, not the scene we want to be in. And as we enter the unknown, we bring a brick, not a cathedral.
Beautiful.
It's connected, right?
It's beautiful, and I love the metaphors and the visuals around that because it makes the big Everests that are around us in all of the different topics actually manageable. It doesn't overwhelm our brain, doesn't flood our senses. So I think I've always loved improv. I've always loved what you've done and what your alum have been have achieved, what they have all achieved. But in this instance, those three phrases, learnings, ways of being are really powerful.
At the very end of your book, you have a passage that I think explains why you would actually come on this particular podcast. And you write, quote, "Here's what I've learned, even with community, even with momentum, real change doesn't happen unless your nervous system says, yes, I can do this." And for everyone, that yes comes at different times when it all starts to make sense and you've crossed into a new way of living, end quote. So let's talk about that particular yes and, because it is a yes and.
Well, we all come to certain topics or realizations or learnings or ways of being at various parts of our lives. I mean, it could be every week, it could be every day, it could be, once a year, whenever, or once every 5 years, whenever it hits and you have that aha and you have that realization and you're able to go, okay, and yes, and what am I going to do about it? It enables you to really, it can actually be very jolting. It's jarring because then you have to think to yourself, well, what am I going to do about it? How am I going to change my communication style, the way that I'm being, the way that I'm building a business? And that kind of change can be so overwhelming for so many people. And sometimes that realization can create a new opportunity immediately, or people will put it on the back burner and then they realize, many years later that they've put it on the back burner, and then they self-flagellate and they get back on the wagon to do whatever they need to be able to do and what have you. So the journey is unique for everybody. And often it can take a lot of reminders to get yourself back on the journey, but some it can be such a flash, like a lightning bolt, to be able to say, okay, I can no longer live like this. I can no longer be like this. I can no longer have my business responding to the industry or the world or society like this. I need to make the change. And then it's, what change do you have to make in yourself? What change do you what changes do you have to make with the people around you, and all of those micro changes that need to happen. It's very, very hard work, as you know.
Yeah. I don't think you know this about me. I did my thesis in college on the beat generation, and it was sort of a reexamination of the beats actually not as an outside of the American literary tradition, but firmly inside that tradition. And a lot of people credit Kerouac with coining the term Beat Generation. He didn't. It was a guy named John Cleland Holmes. And one of the interesting things is they also think that it just means like beat to jazz or beatific, and it does, but it also means beaten down. That when you get so beat down, that's the place you're working from, which is very tied into like Kierkegaard's existential leap of faith. Your contention inside the book is that we're there. We've taken the beating, and that's what I read is the aftershock, which is like, no, it's already happened. This thing that you're all worried about that's going to happen in the future, it's happened, and we need to make changes now.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that forward, because that is exactly the situation. There are so few people that have come to that realization, and we're all very happily living how we want to live our lives without realizing we all need to come together as a global community. But as we know, there's consumerism, there's capitalism, there's business life, there's quarterly targets, there's, paying the mortgage, all of these things that trap us in the system. And I don't want to sound like one of those people that says, you've got to break free, go and live on a self-sustaining farm. That's not what it's about. We all need to find ways that are actually going to make sense for the planetary survival, for us to survive in this planet. We have until 2030. Sorry, everybody, but we have until 2030 really to create net zero. And it should be on the front page of the news every single day that we're focusing on that, and we're not. We're very distracted with all of the systems that are around us. And there's this giant buffer of noise that's preventing us and keeping us distracted from actually doing that level of work. So, yeah, we're in that situation. But I have to say, I was really encouraged very recently when, and I'll do a little bit of a plug, which is that, if you don't mind, Kelly, which is that, thank you, which is that yesterday I was nominated for a leadership award. Nominated, I didn't win, and that's absolutely fine by me, because this event is called Thinkers50, and this event that happens every 2 years is a little bit like the Oscars. The Financial Times calls it the Oscars of management thinking. And, I go to this event every few years, and I hate to say it, but I kind of eye roll, and I have been eye rolling a little bit, which is why I wrote my book, because so much management thinking is based on the quarterly targets. It's based on hierarchy. It's not necessarily based on integrating AI. It's not focused on people, planet, and if profit comes of it, then great. But the system is upside down for what we need right now. So when I was nominated, I mean, there were alongside I think 7 other people, I was kind of blown away, because their topic in this biannual event is about regeneration and the new thinking we need for this new paradigm, which is everything related to AI, societal collapse, and obviously geopolitics, all of the different, as we call it, either mental earthquakes, economic quakes, aftershocks, as I call it, mega crises, polycrises, all of these things. And it sounds really depressing, but the problem is that it is, because from a mindset perspective, it's overwhelming. We don't know how to make sense of it. And so I was really honored. But there are lots of other people that are also tackling this very difficult topic. And we talk about difficult conversations, and this is a difficult conversation. It's not only a difficult conversation, but also behaviorally how we adapt is just so overwhelming for all of us. You just have to look at, your social media feed, and you can see the outrage. Outrage culture is huge. But what if we could turn outrage culture into something more productive? And the only way through that is to go through the realization, which is, I see it now. I can see where we're at. What can I do to change? And it's not about changing others. We're not going to be able to change the system, but how we metabolize it, how we interpret, how we metabolize it, how we are able to contribute to the system is all we can essentially do. But there are other people in this environment that are doing great things. So I was deeply inspired by a man named Jamai Kashau, and I'd love it if you could have him on your podcast. He's got a book coming out in October now, which is pretty much, he's focusing on what he called the BANI era. So that's brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and
incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible. Thank you. Or interconnected. And the issue with that, or should I say not the issue with that, is that this is an acronym. Most acronyms only are flooded into, business. So this is an evolution from VUCA into BANI. And the great thing about that is that organizations are able to adapt. But as we know, it takes organizations a good decade to be able to integrate that. Look how long it took for someone like Amy Edmondson's psychological safety to become a commonplace. It took nearly 2 decades. Radical candor from Kim Scott, same thing. It's taken a long time, and then people will misinterpret. So because we're looking for external sources to be able to solve it, instead of going, okay, I have to stop. I've got to take a beat and go, okay, what have I done to be a part of this system? How do I need to change? And I think that's something we all need to be able to do, even if we're struggling to pay the rent or the mortgage, even if we're struggling to make ends meet, but most especially if you are deeply privileged, like many, let's say the 1% are able to make that change. And I'm really speaking with my book to CEOs to say, guys, really need you to make the change that we really want to see in the world.
When we started the podcast, it's like 8 years ago, VUCA was showing up in the books, which meant it was 10 years, late. And then it was interesting because I had not heard of BANI, and then I'm like, okay, that tracks. And we're next week we're hosting a seminar, or it's a couple of panel sessions with Chicago Innovation and World Business Chicago here at Second City. I'm moderating the first panel, which is on core skills, and the second panel is on technology and AI.
Cool.
And the idea is like, well, let's talk about both these things because they're connected, and they connect, they fight, they scare people, and they scare some technologists, are not good at empathy, and humans who are very good at empathy are sometimes scared of technology. So let's talk about this paradox that exists that you write about, because you say technology offers both promise and paradox. Are we, for those people who are scared of AI, do they have a reason to be scared? Let me start there.
That's a great question. And the answer is yes and no.
Nicely done. Excellent.
So yes and no. I mean, one of the reasons why I wrote a chapter about AI in my first book, Elephants Before Unicorns, and why I received a coaching award at Thinkers50 back in 2019, is because I was identifying just back then how we needed to adapt to AI and how we needed to get our mindsets in the right way. What happens is that, people like me are kind of laughed at because it's like, nothing's going to happen. Something's going to save us, whatever, without realizing that actually you kind of need to put on your futurist hat. We all need to put our futurist hat on. Not doomsday necessarily. I mean, we have to think about, some kind of Black Mirror scenarios to some kind of degree, because that will put us in a situation where we're able to go, okay, well, we don't want that to happen. We don't want bad ethical things to happen. We don't want people to be sent to prison for the wrong reasons, kind of things to happen. We don't want people to be to have their bank accounts emptied, for example, all of these things, or power grids to be brought down, and so on and so on. There are so many bad things that could happen. But when we look at our individual usage. When I did MIT's course, for example, on AI for business strategy, it was straight after ChatGPT had launched, and I was like, okay, I've got to stop everything, and I have to get my head into MIT's zone to understand exactly how I can apply AI to my business, and there was the domino effect from that particular course. I realized every single CEO, and I mean every CEO and leader in an organization and employee in an organization, needed to do that course, because they needed to understand that we've been using AI ever since Clippy. We've been, in its really clunky form, irritating form, as it was learning. I remember just as my son was born, my eldest son was born 23 years ago, I met somebody that was saying, yeah, we're doing this voice recognition thing with phones. It's going to take it on phones. It's going to take a really long time for customer services to be able to have it. But guess what? Fast forward, you're able to, it's determining, if you call the bank, whether or not you are an authentic, you are the actual customer for that particular account. It's so ingrained in everything that we do that we don't realize AI has been a part of us for a really long time. And a lot of people will call it, I think it was, is it Corey? I'm going to get his name wrong. Dr. X, I think that's his name. He's got a new book called AI Certification, and the interesting thing about that is like, well, hold on a second. AI has done great things for us. It's enabled us to be able to simplify our tasks. It's enabled us to, it's provided security. It's provided us with phenomenal Netflix experiences. It's provided us with all of these things. The issue is people will understandably go into a Skynet kind of scenario and think, oh my gosh, the robots are going to come for us. But yeah, that is a scenario if we were to go into some kind of quantum reality. But if we look at it with a positive, through a positive lens, if we're able to look at it through the lens of, okay, what can we use with AI to ensure that we're enriching our work experience, how we're able to enrich problem solving, how we can co-create together, how we're able to solve some of the really difficult some of the difficult issues and challenges of our time. And how are we able to simplify and make life better for us in a way that will ensure that we're able to do great things? And there's lots of industries that are absolutely transforming this for us. The COVID-19 vaccine wouldn't have happened without AI. For example, there's so many reasons for
the translation earbuds, right? That you can have. I mean, it's like they solved Tower of Babel. It's wild.
Exactly. It's absolutely wild. So, we're very fortunate to live in this time. We're seeing so much change so quickly. But the problem is it is hard to interpret and metabolize, especially when I'm going to use this phrase and it's probably going to upset people. We're addicted to social media and the news, and we get these cortisol, shocks in our minds, which tells us the world is burning a lot faster instead of using that energy into problem solving. So we're able to feel like we're all part of the solution.
So I'm going to be extremely on brand and yes and your yes and. I worked at Second City when we first got the internet. I literally remember that sort of genius 17-year-old in the teen company who would become a multimillionaire up in the ceiling, wiring everything. We were the first theater in Chicago to have a website.
Wow.
And I remember people being sort of like, yeah, okay, that's cute. And now we sit here going, hey, where's all the money come in from our business? And it is the internet. Like it is like